this BO.
Woo.
I like that intro. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Someone say here in my garage.
All right, let's sit down. Look, what's up? Everybody say hello. Woo! Somebody say here in my garage. All right, you guys can take a seat. You don't have to. I don't know why Zach did that. Ignore Zach. It's introductions. Woo! You guys learning a lot? Some good speakers so far?
Oh, yeah.
Cool. I heard Dave up here talking about Stellar. Who here
Stellar.
has Stellar? I think when we said to buy a Stellar, what was the price at, Dave? Where did Dave go? What was Stellar at?
At the first crypto meeting,
Yeah.
it was before anyone. It was at $0.015 that day.
It was at $0.015. And what's it at today?
Today, probably 50 cents.
50 cents. So those of you who had listened to Dave, I gotta say that. Those of you who had listened to Dave called Stellar at 1 cent, and what's it at, Dave?
50.
50 cents. 20 grand would be $1 million in the last 2-3 months. That's a good call. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff. I'm going to do a panel because I want to bring on smart people. We're going to talk a little bit about crypto, but things in general for those of you who don't like crypto. There'll be something for you here too. Then we'll talk about other stuff after. So I'm going to bring up, let's bring up Dave, who you know. We're going to bring up Alex Mayer. Alex, come on up, give him a hand. We're going to have some non-crypto people up here too, because I want to get their take on it. So Joel Salatin, are you here? Dr. David Buss. Okay, you guys want to come up here?
Which side?
He wants you on this side, David. Alex. Okay, so let's start talking about, I was talking about this at the Diamond lunch a little bit. Why I think this is important, that each of you should listen to this, even if A, you never heard of crypto, 2, you don't like it, you think it's a scam, 3, you're new to it, or obviously some of you are more advanced. You should listen to this because, as I just showed you, missing trends can be very painful in hindsight. October 1st, basically, if you had gone into Stellar, like Dave was saying, I put it on my Snapchat, I'm pretty sure too, in October 1st, 20 grand would be $1 million today in 3 months. So, 2 grand would be 100 grand. And I don't know much about it, and then knows a lot about it. Okay, so I think you guys did this, but I need to see it with my own eyes. Who here has at least $1 in cryptocurrency? Anything? Okay, that's good. Almost everybody. Who here, and be honest, no one's going to throw tomatoes at you. Who here thinks crypto is going to crash, or it's a scam, or it's not a long-term thing? Raise your hand. Wolf of Wall Street, somebody said. Okay, so we have a handful of people.
Federal Reserve.
Take them outside and stone them. No, it's good. You actually want to hear dissenting arguments because it'll help you find holes in your own argument. You never want to be in a room where everybody agrees with you. That's mass hysteria, by the way. Okay, who here has gotten in the last 3 to 6 months? Raise your hand. Who here got in because you saw something on one of my channels and you were like, cool. What'd you say? Oh, I thought she said crypto is shit. Oh, I am? Okay. So here, let me give my overview, then we're going to go to the panel. This is what I think in general. I think that everything's been disrupted in the world. It makes sense that there's going to be another disruption. The internet, and this is so easy to forget. 15 years ago, people were like, social media is probably not going to last. MySpace, Friendster, there's a fad. You can read articles all about it. 20, 25 years ago, we can pull up videos, right? Find the YouTube, how do I search that one? The YouTube internet. There was a news reporter. It's like, just Google internet reporter doubts the internet. It was like a CNBC.
Katie Couric email.
Yeah, Katie Couric doubts the internet. I want to show you something. Well, maybe that's a good place to start.
Brian Gumble on there as well.
She's like, what is this @ symbol thingy?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Is this curly A? That's right.
it's very important to remember that, because now cycles just repeat themselves. People are cynical about new things, then they're wrong, then they become adopters, and they're using iPhones and the internet, and then the next thing comes along and they're automatically like, no, this is bad, right? So I just want to say, it's going to go up and down a lot because, for example, South Korea just issued this warning that they might be regulating cryptocurrency, right? They didn't, but they issued a warning. And what happened to cryptocurrency?
Plummeted.
Crashed. So guess what they're finding now? There's investigations that South Korean government officials might have done that on purpose to crash it, and then they bought it. And then they're like, oh, my bad, and let it go back up. So it's an unregulated market. So more than ever, you're going to have to use common sense. And more than ever, you will be able to probably make gains, but also people without common sense are going to lose it all. That's what's going to happen. And I was telling people at the Diamond Dinner, I was just in Miami at the largest Bitcoin conference yesterday. And I was with a guy, and there were some people. One guy has $600 million in his wallet right now from cryptocurrency. $600 million he's made in the last couple of years. There's immense wealth, and these guys are very smart. And so they're waiting for newbies to come in, buy when it hits 17,000, 18,000. Then they're happy when it crashes, and they sell it to them. They sell it to the new people at 17 or 18,000 per Bitcoin. And then they wait for the people to freak out, and they buy it back from them in 10 grand. It'd be kind of like this. You have a house, you overprice it, and somebody takes it. You're like, hey, my house, it's probably only worth 500 grand, but you're like, oh, I'll sell it to you for $1 million. And somebody's like, oh, I love your doors in your bathroom, and I love this area. I'll give you $1 million. So you go, okay. You take their $1 million. And then within 3 months, they go, I don't like this house anymore. Buy it back from me. And you go, all right, I'll give you 100 grand. And they go, okay. So you buy it back for 100 grand. Now imagine this analogy. 6 months later, they come back to your house for another party because you want selling for $1 million, buying it back for 100 grand. Not that you really want to exploit people. I was just saying, if you had to be one of those two, you definitely don't want to be on the downside. So Dave's philosophy is one of long-term hold. Now, Alex here is a little more of a trader. Not a trader, Traitor, but trader. Hey, did you find that video by any chance?
Yeah.
Okay, can you play this? Is this the internet one? Okay, watch this.
Back now, 56 pence. I wasn't prepared to trade that as I was doing that little tease.
Oh, that's
that little
right.
mark with the A and then the ring around it.
At?
See, that's what I said.
Mm-hmm.
Katie said she thought it was about.
Yeah. Oh.
But I'd never heard it.
Around.
I'd never heard it said. I'd always seen the mark, but never heard it said. And then it sounded stupid when I said it. Violence at NBC.
I heard be around big fight in the lunchroom the other
See,
week.
there it is. Violence at NBC. GE.com. I mean,
Well, Allison should know.
what is internet anyway?
Internet is that massive computer network. The one that's becoming really big now.
What do you mean? That's big. How does one? What do you write to it like mail?
No, a lot of people use it and communicate with. I guess they can communicate with NBC writers and producers. Allison, can you explain what internet is?
No, she can't say anything in 10 seconds or less.
Oh, Allison will be in the studio shortly.
What does
it mean?
It's a giant.
All right, that's good.
Made up of.
So that's probably where the world is in cryptocurrency. People are like, I literally still get people that are like, Ty, what is a Bitcoin? What is a Bitcoin? So, what year was that video? Okay, so think of this. 94, that video comes out. The mass media is clueless. The population is clueless. What did Jeff Bezos do that year in 94? Started Amazon. So one person was clueless about a trend. Another person was catching a trend. What just happened to Jeff Bezos in the last 3 months? Richest man, I mean, almost in history mathematically, but $103 billion net worth. So that's what I'm saying. For those of you who are not paying attention, you do not want a video shown of you like Katie Couric. You want that. Okay. And Dan Fleischer, did you speak in the main thing yet? No. So Dan is, so Alex's background, his first business, he's a lucky entrepreneur, or maybe not lucky, maybe skill. His first business has now done $1 billion in revenue. He spent, I don't know, over $400 million on Facebook and internet ads. His company now makes, which he's kind of retired from, makes between $500,000 and $1 million a day. And he has the top 5 of all-time revenue. So he's also made money with apps, and he's also run his own little fund for his own money in just traditional stock market. Now he's applying that over into cryptocurrency. Dan Fleischman, the youngest person in history to go public, right? Take a company public. He's now an angel investor, 27 different companies at least, maybe more. He's working on a huge crypto mining thing where they're mining Bitcoin. How much, you showed a check on my Snapchat, how many mining machines did you guys buy over there?
That week was $16 million.
They bought $16 million that week. He was at my house of mining machines that mine crypto. So that's, and then of course you've already met Dr. Buss and Joel and Dave. So I want to start out just putting a question to the panel. I'm actually going to start with Alex because Alex is bearish right now. So he thinks who's certain difference between being a bull and a bear? Just be honest. Okay, here's the simplest way to think of it. There's a statue in New York City on Wall Street of a bull. All right? And that's a good thing. That means things are going well. So all you got to remember that statue in your head. What's the opposite of the bull, the bear? What's the opposite of good? Bad. So he's not a bear long term.
Short-term bear.
Can you tell us why? Can you draw right here a chart of why you think, you can stand right here, where you think Bitcoin may go?
Okay, let me ask you a question. Those of you guys who think Bitcoin will go up, raise your hand. Okay. All right, let's say the next 3 months.
Next 3 months.
Will go up. Yep. Raise your hand. Okay, those of you who think in 3 months Bitcoin will go down, raise your hand. It's like 1/3 of Bill. There's actually an index. I traded stocks for years, 5-6 years ago. And there's an index called bull to bear ratio. And it's purely sentiment. And you really want to get in when there are more bears than bulls. Right now, there's about 3-1, I want to say. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
So there are a lot of optimistic people. And that's why I say, so this is how I think about it. Whenever you have, and this is not, general rule, but whenever you have any asset that is being traded among humans, and it appreciates like that, right? And then it drops significantly, like it did. It dropped by about 30% or something, right? What happens is that there's a lot of what is called overhead supply, meaning there are a lot of people that either bought here and they were looking at their wallet every day and they saw, oh my God, I made so much money. And then all of a sudden that number has shrunk, or there are a ton of people who bought here and now they're in negative, right? Guess what happens when this starts rallying again? What do those people do? They all sell. It's called overhead supply. So they were like, on the moment I break even, I'm going to sell. These are all these guys. These guys who made like $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 in profits, now they saw that it shrank to $500. They're like, I'm going to sell the moment it goes back to $1,500 green. So the market, the way I think about it right now, has a lot of what I call weak hands. People that have bought either here and they've lost some of the profits, or bought here and that's exactly what you were talking about. So people that are psychologically ready to sell every rally. And then what happens is that it's going to bounce. This is, again, predictions always go wrong in the market, but it's going to bounce and people start selling and they sell the rally. So Bitcoin is unable to actually go back up to its previous high. Then what do you think is going to happen next? Bears get more bearish. They become more dug in their conviction. Bulls start losing conviction, because if you are on the wrong side of the trade for a long time, you just psychologically get tired. And then what happens? Like later on, this goes down again because some people sold the rally, it goes down, then it tries to go up. What happens? People are going to start selling the rally earlier and earlier. That doesn't mean Bitcoin will go to zero. It means that it has to work its way, it has to build a base, it has to flush out all the weak hands, and whoever is left at the end of it, those are people with convictions, and the professional money comes in, flushes out amateurs, and then the price goes back up. So that's how I.
So this is This is one prediction.
It's prediction.
And as we know, nobody will be 100% right.
Right.
Alex thought that the support level was around 8,500, that it could drop. There's also something called the supporting level. That's the level where smart money goes, all right, I'll buy it at that cheaper price. Like for sure, I promise you there is a support level of $1 for Bitcoin.
Yes.
There's zero way Bitcoin will ever go to zero. One person will buy all of it if it ever goes to $1. That's what support means, by the way. And there's probably, if Bitcoin goes to $100, remember, there's only can be, let's say 21 million Bitcoin. At $100, one fund will buy all of it. When I was in Miami this weekend, I was with a guy, I can't say who he is because he's very well known, but this guy owns like 1% of Bitcoin already, him and his fund. And so they, obviously you would never want to own all Bitcoin because there'd be nobody to trade with, but you get the point. The point is there's a support level. So some people think Bitcoin will go to zero. It's also possible the U.S. government will go to zero at some point.
Yes, that's right.
Sovereign currencies. My grandma, it's not that long ago, Joel, my grandma, when I interviewed her for her 100th New Year's, she was born in 1918. As soon as my grandma could remember the world, which is in the 1920s, Germany went into hyperinflation. And she remembers people used to run. You would get paid your paycheck and you'd run to the bank, because by the time you got to the bank to turn in like a check, it wasn't worth as much. And she said she remembers people would pay her dad, who was a doctor. He didn't want money anymore. So they would give them, like chickens, food. So there's a possibility, and Germany, by the way, was a global power. A huge global power. It was considered really the most civilized country in the world. So nothing. Bitcoin can go to zero. U.S. dollar can go to zero. Joel, what's your take? I know you're a libertarian. Can you see the U.S. dollar? Is your name Joel too? Can you see it going to zero? What do you think? What do you think will happen with the U.S. government? If you had, forget Bitcoin, 100 years from now, where do you see America? Global power still?
The one thing I don't do is prophesy.
Okay.
Because I have a whole file of stupid prophecies. Like in 1966, when Tom Watson, the CEO of IBM, said that the world market for computers was about 5.
Yeah.
And of course, Wall Street, October 8, 1929, it's a bull thing, it's going to last forever, blah, blah, blah. So the one thing I don't do is prophesy. I do think, though, that you can look at trajectories. I mean, you can look at, there's a Chinese proverb that says, if you keep going the way you're going, you're going to end up where you're headed. Woo! And so, the way to bet the history of civilizations is rise and fall of civilizations. And so there are a lot of kind of tipping points on the horizon, from water wars, running out of water. A lot of aquifers are going down. Potable water. Most people who watch this say the next wars will be fought over water. I look at desalinization plants that are desperate for India and other Pakistan's putting in massive desalinization. Pakistan, India are fighting over water. Fresh water is a big deal, and so that's one. Another one is just soil. The ability of soil to grow things, and
what do you think about government debt?
Yeah, government debt.
In the Fed.
Well, Gordon Hazard, who was one of Alan Nation and our mentors, said, "Ain't nobody thrown a ball so high it doesn't come down." And so, you can scoff at debt if you want to, but generally, the erosion of trustworthy money, it killed the Roman Empire, and when they started adding copper and zinc into the coins and debasing them. Same thing happened in Europe, France. So when you debase the money supply and people don't trust it anymore, usually civilizations start to malfunction, or dysfunction becomes more endemic within the culture. So this isn't because ultimately, a country's moral compass is based on its financial morality. And if a civilization loses its financial morality, then there's no anchor, there's no moral anchor to keep a civilization afloat. And you can't do business with somebody, because your exchange thing can't be trusted anymore. So, I don't know. You're looking at a guy that still has a flip phone. So the one thing we do, we make a joke that we don't want to be the very first to jump into a technology, just because it hasn't, as you say, it hasn't hasn't shaken out yet. You got to let it go through the combine and shake out the chaff. And that's what we're in, the shaking period, right? Exactly what Alex is saying. We're in a shaking period. So our feeling is we want to jump on the technology right before we become obsolete.
Okay.
So
that's a safe place. You don't want to wait until you are obsolete.
Right.
But generally, the people who jump in first and are involved in the shakedown, if they're not doing it with capital that they can afford to lose, there's a lot of losers.
Yes.
Like Alan used to say, if you go to an auction and in the first 5 minutes you don't know who the sucker is, it's you.
Yeah.
So I don't know where the country's going. To me, that's outside my sphere of influence. So I don't get bogged down in where things are going. I know one thing: I can grow more earthworms, I can build soil, and I can feed people the best food in the world.
Dan, are you?
And Ty, beyond that, one thing I'll just say is that regardless of where things go or how things go, one of the beauties of being in the soil building and nutrient dense food business is, regardless of whether it goes up or down, or Wall Street collapses or not, or whether there's a country or not, or whether we call ourselves Americans or XYZs or whatever it is, people are still going to have to eat.
Right.
And they're still going to depend on earthworms to get it to them.
Yeah. That's a good point for all of you. I think most people here, your ideal situation is you have a business that generates cash flow, and it's in something that's just tried and true, and then you can take excess profits, and you can invest it in real estate, and you can invest it in cryptocurrency and the stock market, all those things. Most people here should not devote your life only to being a full-time crypto trader. In fact, what Dave's trying to say is a lot of full-time crypto traders, they show that they've made 100% or 500%, but if they had just bought the coin and held, they would have made 1,000%.
Right.
So let's now get Dan Fleischman's opinion. Do you you have a little different take on it than Alex?
So I like the concept of the way that Alex explains it. I think the only difference is there's hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars that is still coming in and very little trickling out. It's like big waves are coming onto the beach, but very little is going back out into the ocean. So because of greed, what people don't realize is every single day I'm getting 5 to 50 different texts of my rich friends, my broke friends, my Uber driver, and everybody in between asking how to buy Bitcoin. But very few of them are selling. If you look in the room, if you raise your hands, if you put on $1,000 and you got up to $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000, are you still in it, or did you remove all your money? Very few removed all their money. They're gambling. They want to keep going, right? Because they think it's never going to end. Will it end? Of course, we can't go up forever.
Yeah.
There's a peak at some point. But we haven't had the real money come in. There's no pension fund in yet. You don't have the Firefighters Association sending in $8 billion yet because they can't. They're a custodian of money. They need it to be more safe and not so volatile, and we're nowhere near not being volatile, right?
Yeah.
So I just don't think that people realize how many hundreds and hundreds of billions and eventually trillions are coming in. That's why last year we started with a $70 billion market cap, and we ended with $600 or $700 billion market cap because so much money came in and very little came out. So I think the concept of this is absolutely correct, 100%, except there's just so many humans, from Uber drivers to billionaires, everybody in between, that is trying to buy in, and the only way to get in and buy any altcoin is to buy Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So they have to at least start somewhere. So they're all starting off at Coinbase.com. They're all buying their initial Bitcoin, $500, $5,000, or $5 million. But the billionaires and zillionaires and hedge fund managers and the governments and countries and people we don't know, they can't buy $5 million in one shot. They're still trying. Coinbase has like a $3,000 cap when you first get started.
Yeah.
And then you get lucky to 10,000. And then after a bunch of verifications of you holding up a picture of you with your driver's license, then you get 25,000. My friend wants to buy $1 million, $5 million, $10 million. A hedge fund guy wants to buy $100 million. They can't yet. So we just have so many oceans and oceans of money coming in that still haven't even got started yet. I don't think we've scratched the surface yet.
Yeah, but that is over here. So
Correct.
it's like further out.
Because they can't get the money in yet. I agree.
Yeah.
You know, the crazy thing, and why I'm glad I'm on the podium and not making any predictions, is because this is being videoed. So in 3 months, either Alex is going to be a genius, or people are going to be like, I'm not listening to that guy anymore. Hey, I'll tell you exactly what Joel said. Mark, I haven't been in business as long as Joel, but I'm telling you, exact predictions are always wrong. Exact predictions are always wrong. I mean, I think what you're saying about pension funds, soon pension funds will be able to come in with a small percentage of their portfolio, even if it's very volatile. You can put hedge funds, well, not so much hedge funds, but pension funds are able to put a very small amount of money in very volatile things. And basically crazy. They can probably put about 5% of their...
Yeah, actually think about it this way. Put yourself, you're a fund manager, right? And a competitor fund, which happens, Sequoia is one of the largest VC firms in the Bay Area. They put 1% of their holdings in Bitcoin. Now, that may be a good bet, that may be a terrible bet, but doesn't matter. If it goes to zero, it has no impact on the fund. But imagine it 1,000 excess from now.
Yeah.
Then Benchmark Capital would look like a fool that they didn't put 1% of their money not into it. So Benchmark cannot afford not to put the 1% in it because they don't want to look stupid. So it's very simple. And the moment that dynamic plays out, this will go back up. It's just, but I have also a counter data point to what just Dan said. It's like the bull side of my brain is fighting with the bear side of my brain. So the numbers, have you guys heard the concept of stock versus flow? Do you guys know the difference?
Mm-hmm.
Stock is
Here, write this up.
Yeah.
People do better with a little writing. Stock versus flow.
So,
Nice here.
You just got in the room, man. You're a little late. You're late to the trend.
So imagine a bucket, and I'm gonna make it a leaky bucket first. So, and you have a little faucet here, and you have water coming out, right? Flow is how much water is being added to the bucket per minute, okay? Stock is how much water is in it cumulative. Does that make sense? So flow can be very small, but stock can be big, meaning this water has been running for days, for months. A lot of water has been accumulated. Does that make sense? So flow is how much water, speed of water coming in. Stock is how much water is in here. Now, you mentioned Coinbase. That's mostly how Americans buy Bitcoin. So if you look at the number of downloads of Coinbase in the App Store, that's a public number. I don't know why more traders not looking at it. Coinbase app was downloaded more than Snapchat for about a week. It was #1 app in the App Store.
In December.
In December. Is that stock or flow?
Flow.
It's flow. It means a ton of people are coming in at a high speed. And these people come in, they buy Bitcoin, right?
Yes.
So there's flow of new money buying Bitcoin from sellers. Now Coinbase is like, I think ranking is below 200. It's just dropping off the base. What does that mean?
Yeah, flow.
Flow is very small. And what determines the price of any asset like Bitcoin? It is not how much people have paid for it all the time. It has nothing to do with the stock. It's like the last few Bitcoins that are traded, at what price was that traded? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So flow determines the price, not stock. All the stock traders kind of understand this concept. It is all about what the last few Bitcoins were traded at. So when flow goes down, even though there's a massive market cap, $200-something billion of Bitcoin here, what happens to the price if flow goes down? It drops. So that's kind of like the logical, that's a counter argument. Now, you can
have a counter argument.
I can have a counter argument.
The
Yes.
counter to the counter is that big money's not going to come in through Coinbase.
Yes, exactly. That
Because
is exactly
these hedge fund guys are trusted. They're not going to mess around with they're not going to take a picture.
They're not going to download
and have $7,500 a week thing. That's not even worth it for them. So there's money coming in another way.
Can I give you another counter?
Yes. Can you come up on the board?
Yeah. So.
By the way, let me do a quick intro for the audio in case anyone would listen. I introduced you. Alex also is a PhD went to Berkeley and all this. Astrophysicist. No, not astrophysicist.
Mechanical engineering.
Mechanical engineering.
Yeah.
Dave, we gave one earlier so we got everybody. All right.
Okay, so let me throw some cold water on the Stellar story. So Stellar was at way under a penny. This is back around May. It went up to 6 cents. From I don't even know what. Okay, then I started getting into it later. I did my studying. I saw it had come down. Who knows where. I have my dollar cost averaging thing. I'm not in the game of what's going to happen next week. A trend is true until it's not true anymore. Whatever. So so over a month, I'm buying a little bit. So I build up my position. So average cost around 3 cents. But my thinking is not what's it doing next week? Is it going up and down? And trying to figure out flow, which is true if everybody buys. But I just think this is going to be bigger in 5 years, so I want to hold it. So then it's going down. And so if Ty had his first meeting here, I still loved Stellar. The second video I made on my YouTube channel was Stellar. I would have talked about it, and then everyone would have said, this guy's an idiot, because for 4 months it was going nowhere. Then Ty had his meeting. 2 weeks later, IBM announcement with Stellar, and we went. So this is 6 cents now at 50 cents. So, and Bitcoin has had it went from $1 to $10 to $2. It went from $10 to $100 to $20. This happens, and so, to an extent, yeah. So my thing is right. So Bitcoin. I look in terms of months. It's been between 12 and 16 since the beginning of September. I believe it will continue to be between 12 and 16 until it's not. And if one day it drops to 9, that's a good day to buy. If one CNBC week and you want to sell and it goes to 19, great. But in general, it's there. If I'm looking to accumulate, I would look at 12. One of these days, it's going to go to 16, and then it's going to shoot through. But whatever, I just buy and hold and try not to get into that game.
Yeah, that's a good point. Just the down isn't always bad. One thing I'll show here that kind of, this is something that Alan Nation showed me. And this is a good thing to know about money in general, but it applies to cryptocurrency, real estate, business. For the most part, if you look at the U.S., we've gone through cycles. We'll call this the CC, the capitalistic cycle, which is psychological, and that's why it's a cycle. So you have this peak here, and then you have this. This is called a recession. Recession, I think, is 2 quarters of negative growth, right? And then you have the bottom, and then you have the expansionary period, and then you're back to a peak. Okay, so what Alan Nation taught me when I was 20, or I started hearing him talk about, is that this period of time, there's an average time. In this economy, it's been 7 to 10 years. Okay. So 2000, remember at the beginning of 2000, is when the stock market, when the market for like the internet bubble crashed, right? So around, let's say 1999 to 2001 was like this peak and crash. Then when was the next crash? 2008, right? So about how many years is that? About 7, 8 years. What was a crash? Who remembers a crash before 2000-ish? What was the crash before then?
86? 91? 91 real estate. No.
Yeah, 91
was came out in 91. Around 90 was the real estate. The savings and loans.
So the savings and loans was in the 80s, I think. Savings and loan was like 80 and something. But you notice it was about 10 years earlier there was, well, for sure there was the crash of what, 80s, wasn't it 87 was the big crash? 87, October 87 was the big, there was a big crash then. So that's about 10-ish, 12 years. So the first thing you got to know, everybody in this room, cryptocurrency, business, I've seen this, by the way. I remember I got into business, so I started as a teenager, and I remember 2001 kind of crash, and that was literally when I first started making money, in the biggest crash. 2008, I stumbled into Facebook ads right during the crash. I remember my biggest financial day of my life. So first thing I want to say is, don't be scared of any point on here. See these more as like cycles of maybe the day, of the week. You have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Who here has a 9-to-5 job? Okay, do you tend to like Fridays? Do you tend to not love Mondays sometimes, Monday morning? But it's part, you've learned that as part of the cycle, right? You don't have a heart attack that it's Monday morning and go, No, you just know this is welcome to planet Earth. So you need to know that right here is like a Friday in the economy. And then this is, or maybe we could say building up. Friday's here. Saturday's kind of the peak of most 9-to-5 people's lives, right? Saturday's your free day. Sunday is still good. Tuesday, people are working. And then come Wednesday, you're starting to Friday. Okay? Does that help you guys? Okay, everything that you ever do is going to go through this. And what you want to learn to do, that's different than the average person on planet Earth. Gain mastery of each day of the week. Alan Nation didn't say it to me this way, but this is my interpretation of it. But he taught me this principle. So my question is it possible to be happy on a Monday? How about at the peak of your work week Tuesday? You can find a way to make it. Okay, I'm saying I've made more money here than here. So I've gotten over, this whole Bitcoin thing means nothing to me. I'm just telling you. I'm like, this is no offense to anybody. I'm not saying what you're saying is nonsense. I'm saying the conversation is unimportant. Because the only conversation that really matters, will Bitcoin go to zero? If it goes to zero, then anybody who put money in Bitcoin made a mistake. Because it's like if you invest in a stock and the company goes bankrupt, you lost all your money. As long as I don't think the company will go to zero or the asset like Bitcoin, then it's more of a question of when, because inflation alone will raise the price of everything. If you bought real estate, I have a house. You guys seen that house? The here in my garage house? That's a different house than I live in now. So I still have that one. Zach lives there now. And that wasn't even a joke, but okay. This is an easy crowd here. No, that's where Zach lives. In 2000, that house in 2001 was purchased for like 150 grand or something. And now it's worth, if you just forget about that house, rent it out, and you come back, now 2018, it's worth many, many millions of dollars. There's an inflationary thing that's helping you. So the odds are if Bitcoin doesn't go to zero, just inflationary pressure alone is going to move the price up. So you don't have to have this heart attack. Now, next thing to know. There's also mini cycles in here that fool people, but trust me, this thing. So the question is, where are we? We're probably here. And there's probably a crash going to come, I guess, maybe in the stock market. Stock market's hyperinflated. Something will happen. No matter what, humans find a way to screw things up. Okay, so something's probably coming. Now, one interesting, unique thing in the world, and this is new, is now crypto is truly a true global market. There's never been a true global market like this. So this actually may make less huge up and down, in my opinion. This is a bold thing for me to say, and someone will, I'm sure, if I'm wrong, people will think I'm an idiot, but I'll give you my justification. Crypto trades 365, 24/7. Doesn't ever stop. In fact, one of my friends who's a huge crypto trader, his girlfriend left him. I'm like, why? He's like, because I'm like, just watching. And she literally was like, we don't talk anymore. And he's like, bye. And she just left. That was it. I don't know if that's the right thing to do, but that's actually what happened. And so what happens is now, if America was about to have a recession based on our economy, based on our real estate, but Korea and China is doing well, those people will have more money to buy Bitcoin. So it may make these huge swings. It may bring the global economy, might start balancing itself out a little bit. Does that make sense? Because a lot of people in Brazil are buying crypto. Eastern Europe is big into crypto. Russia, the Middle East is huge. And so it could be a good thing where the dips used to be like this. And that's what I'm wondering out loud to you guys, what might be happening. We were due for a recession. I'm not sure what's happening. I mean, we had our last recession in 2008. It's been 10 years. Yeah. And I'm going, maybe our grandkids are going to look back and maybe it won't be 7 to 10 years. Maybe the dips will be more like this. This is a utopian version of the world. So utopia usually doesn't happen. So I'm just literally wondering out loud if something like this is happening. It used to, and I can prove it has gotten better. When my grandma was a little girl in the 1920s, there was no food. My grandma said, and she was from a relatively upper class family. Her dad was a doctor. And she said, Ty, we used to eat carrots for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Carrot soup, carrot everything. She said our skin turned orange. And when she came to America at 19 years old, she got on a boat. She came here. She enrolled in college. She went to Bryn Mawr University, and she walked in the cafeteria, and she saw it was an all-girls school. Other girls had 2 eggs for breakfast. And my grandma goes, I'd never seen somebody have 2 eggs for breakfast. And she goes, and then they only ate one of them and threw the other one away. And my grandma was like, what kind of, she's like, I'm in the promised land. You can have 2 eggs. So the trough in Germany, it used to be like this. You're a rich country like Germany, boom, you went all the way to almost starving to death. And then it came back up, and Germany, of course, became very wealthy under Hitler for a time, and then, of course, went to zero. So I'm wondering if now, because of a global market and technology and things like cryptocurrency, we might make our dips not so bad. And the 2008 one, if you ask my grandma about that was a bad recession. 6 million people lost their homes. Nobody was eating carrot soup. Nobody was going, 2 eggs? My golly, that's the greatest world I've ever heard of. So the dips are already not dipping so much. So the way I see Bitcoin and crypto is that some of these past ways we predicted things are slowly becoming maybe a little outdated. I don't know. I don't know if I want to go on. Yeah.
Go for it. I was just going to point out that sometimes there's a confluence of technology and resource metabolism or development that brings in from outside things that change a cycle. For example, a good one would be FDR's New Deal. It worked not because it was good policy, but because of the discovery of oil in Texas. And that flushed the country with cheap energy, which fueled this incredible war effort and industrial, in the 30s. I mean, so this was in the 30s that they found all the oil in Texas. And so these gushers were literally flooding the economy with cheap energy. I can remember when we had a heart attack when gas went to over 30 cents a gallon.
Yeah.
Oh no, the world's going to come to an end. But Alan Nation used to say this too. He said that it takes a while for the value of technology to be fully appreciated. So the automobile, 1910, every editorial in every city is saying the cities are going to collapse because we can't move the horse manure fast enough. I mean, the cities were just imploding with manure. And so the fear was manure. And here came the Model T and saved the city and paved the way for, so the extraction of value from the technology of the automobile essentially created the semblance of wealth that crashed in 1929. And there's a lag period. The same thing happened with the development of the internet. The internet has flushed the globe with a new value, basically from, it's a dark horse. It's a black swan, okay, that's flushed the world with a value that can be extracted, but it only lasts for so long until that cycle of that technology goes. Right now, who would have guessed 10 years ago that the U.S. would have more petroleum than the Middle East? But now, with fracking and with the natural gas explosion that we're having, our energy costs are plummeting when our technology we've got now, for example, FedEx, UPS, they've got software in their trucks. I know this because we distribute food, okay? And they've got software where you plug in your route for the day, and it spits out your route, so you never make a left-hand turn. And that saves 30% in fuel. So that kind of technology, utilities are suffering because what happens, many of the utilities are suffering because their business model is based on increased usage of electricity. Well, it's actually plummeting. Okay, and even petroleum. And so all I'm saying is that the technology and resource extraction, and sometimes a marriage of those two, is essentially an unknown black swan that nobody can predict or see that dramatically affects where so we could say that Obama, like FDR, many of his policies would have bankrupted the country with the increase of the federal government and the expenditure, but because of all this cheap fuel that we suddenly found, natural gas and fracking and all that, it saved the country from economic problems because of a flush of cheap energy that allowed us to keep going.
Yeah, that's why you have to be. That's why these future predictions. That's why I'm like,
oh man,
yeah, be very careful. When you start meeting people that are like, Bitcoin will be at $1 million in like 3 months, you're just like, you are guaranteed to be an idiot if you said that. There's nobody knows. Now, I want to we haven't heard from Dr. David Buss. For those of you coming in later, Dr. David Buss is one of the preeminent evolutionary psychologists. His textbooks are used at Ivy League schools, Harvard. He used to teach at Harvard. Professor at Harvard, now he's at University of Austin, Texas. And I saw you just got ranked as one of the most cited psychologists of an era.
Yeah, they did a list of the most 50 influential psychologists in the world, and so I crept onto that list. So.
I think you know more about cryptocurrency than you're letting on, because you understand psychology. So can I throw a question at you? This is not about Bitcoin.
Sure. I actually was going to say, before you ask the question, I was going to say about predictions. Also, like Joel, I don't like to make predictions. One thing I do predict, though, is that people will have mating motivations from here on out. People are not going to stop mating. So our evolved psychology of mating is gonna play out here, and also the things that Alex was saying, the chart he was describing. A lot of these things are based on our evolved psychology, and I think as you know, as many of the people in the audience know, things like the a loss aversion that people have. You win $100 and your happiness level goes up a bit. You lose $100 and you feel a lot worse. It's like, as Jimmy Connors used to say, I hate losing more than I like winning. Yeah. So there's this asymmetry in gains and losses that people experience psychologically, and I think that plays into some of these some
exactly
of these market
that
trends.
is. Yeah. The FOMO. So going to that, Dr. Buss, in terms of, let's bring up the mating thing for a second. I saw an article, want to get your opinion, that said one of the appeals of Bitcoin is like an iPhone. It's like sexiness to be able to say. When I saw that article, I was like, could people really be buying Bitcoin because it makes them, it's a social status? Do you think that people make decisions that simply?
Men especially are very sensitive to whatever cues to social status exist in their local culture. So yeah, if you're in a hunter-gatherer culture, hunting success is the key thing that's going to raise your status. In the modern environment, I don't know. I'm one of those people who's very ignorant of Bitcoin. I had to turn to the gentleman to my right at lunch and ask him, what is Bitcoin? So I'm one of those clueless people. I know about mating psychology, but I know nothing about Bitcoin or crypto.
So this risk aversion, people call it fear of missing out, FOMO. Is there... And risk aversion is the other thing I wanted to ask you. So there's not wanting to lose, but there's also not wanting to take a risk and take a chance. Can you talk a little bit about that evolved mechanism? Because most people in the world are watching other people get into Stellar at 1 cent and it goes to 50 cents and they still won't get in. Why are people so hesitant to try something new?
I think our evolved psychology is inherently conservative. I mean, not in a political sense, but in the sense of we do what has worked in the past. And that's the way evolution by selection works. That's why when there's a mutation that comes in to the gene pool, most of them are bad. They're deleterious, and they get weeded out. Every once in a while, there's one that's beneficial, and then that gets selected. So there's an inherent conservatism that's built into both the evolutionary process and into our evolved psychology.
And you think that's healthy, or it just is what it is?
Well, I don't know. I mean, all bets are off because we evolved in an environment where it was a small group living. We had perhaps 100 to 200 people in our small group, where things like what our friend who we grew up with did, that works, and so we imitate that. Now we're living in a weird world where we have billions of people and the internet, and so all bets are off. So I'll give you one example of this in the mating context. I always pull everything back to mating because everything is all about mating, but also it's what I know. So we evolved in a context where in small group living, you would have been exposed to perhaps 2-3 dozen potential mates in your entire lifespan. Okay, now with internet dating services, there are thousands or millions of potential mates. Okay, how does that affect our evolved psychology? Well, these are open questions. We don't know the answers to that. But they are tampering with it. And one of the things that it's doing, I think, in this case, in the context of mating, maybe Alex can speak to this since he actually has run a very successful internet dating service, is that it gives us the illusion of infinite choice, the illusion that there are thousands of potential. There's always someone just around the corner who's a little bit better than who we have. And so, no, I'm not going to commit to that one. Or I don't like the way this person combs their hair, so I'm going to move on. And so there's this, sometimes it's called the catastrophe of choice, or that's not the exact phrase.
Paradox of choice.
Yeah.
I like the catastrophe. That sounds more.
It may be catastrophic, or maybe not.
Do you think? So let's talk about careers, and this applies, of course, to crypto. Right now in crypto market cap, coin market cap, I think there's about 1,000 to 2,000 coins listed. In business, everybody here in Peter Drucker's book, Manage Oneself, he talked about it 100 years ago, 200 years ago. If you're born in the 1800s, the reasons we have these names that end in son is because we did what our parents did, Or you were Smith. Because your dad was a Smith, your last name was a Smith, you were a Smith. Or a Cooper. You made barrels. And all of a sudden in the modern world, every person here can pretty much apply to any job in the world. So what I find with entrepreneurs, and I see this in cryptocurrency, is people don't realize you can't be good at every career. Like Dave says, you cannot analyze and research every coin. There's literally coins you've never heard of. Even now, even the people I think they know, there's new ICOs happening. So how do we deal with that catastrophe of choice? Like, do we just go, do we pretend we live in an evolved society 200 years ago and just go, I don't actually have that many choices? Like, what's your answer?
Yeah, I don't know. I
like that answer.
It's a new world. One thing I will predict is males are more risk-taking than females on average.
Okay.
So that's a prediction, and that's why we die 5 to 7 years earlier than women on average.
So you don't think that's a gender stereotype?
No, it's a fact. You look up mortality statistics. How long do women live? How long do men live? That's a fact. And one reason is the risk taking. By the way, same thing occurs in cats. Okay, sex difference in lifespan. There's one way to fix it. Okay, if you're a male cat, you want to live just as long as the females, castrate. Okay, take away the testosterone levels, and then the male cats live just as long as the females.
So it's not the gender; it's the testosterone.
Well, it's
anybody want to volunteer to live longer, but will live longer with a few less things.
It has its downsides.
How many women are out here running 80 miles an hour down on those 2 yellow strips down here on the expressway on their motorcycles? How many women?
Yeah.
Not
one woman raised her hand. You got here real fast. Yeah, I once saw this guy. He did an experiment on himself. I don't know what, he was doing something else, but he pumped himself full of estrogen. So I'm working on this book. I don't know if I've told you. It'll be written in 2.5 years. I'm almost done with this other book. But I got a big project, a 5-year book. I'm calling it $1 Million Body. Spent $1 million on myself testing every known health thing that exists. I've done almost every blood test. You name it, I've probably done it. I haven't done the one Dr. Buss suggested. I don't plan to do that one. But so I did a blood test. First blood test I did with this company, Wellness FX. I had Maya do it, and her testosterone levels came back in the blood test. I was like, let me see yours. So Maya's total testosterone was 32, and I was like, you need to send your blood back in. They made a mistake. She's like, why? I was like, well, mine's 1,200. There's no way you have 32. So we called the company, and they're like, nope, she has 32. So trust me, on the blood level, if you test, men and women are different. So there's one guy did the opposite. I haven't tried this, don't plan to do it. He started pumping himself full of estrogen, and he said he was walking down the hallway, and out of the corner of his eye, that Sarah McLachlan commercial came on about saving animals, puppies. And he said he just burst into tears. And he goes, now I understand my girlfriend better. So actually, the answer is if a woman wanted to take testosterone shots, or a man could take estrogen, and some people do. And so a lot of this is more hormonal than actually gender, you know. So it's an interesting. Okay, I don't know. We're all over the place here. Let's bring this back. But it is a good point in crypto. I was just at the biggest crypto conference in the world, Bitcoin. It's all guys. It's all so women. I would say it's a good opportunity for those of you women who get in. You'll be trailblazers. It's kind of cool.